your multi-dimensional being. We will explore the various major vehicles of consciousness, the differences between them, what is relationship with them. So everything is God. And beautifully, we can see the vast diversity of life. Not only on our beautiful planet Earth, but all across the skies, galaxies, billions, trillions of other planets, star systems. The creation is so vast and it's multi-layered, multi-dimensional. Every major world religion, tradition recognizes that there are subtler aspects to creation, higher dimensions, going ever deeper, ever higher. The same way, your beautiful physical body is composed of over 30 trillion cells dancing together in harmony, making you feel okay. People come and ask you, how are you feeling today? I am fine. So just like your physical body, in a simplistic way, we may say, this is the body. However, when we look deeper, there are so many different components, so many different organs and systems working together to sustain this biophysical suit. So when the soul has descended from the divine, in order to function within the creation, within the universes, within different layers of the universes, it needs to adopt a suitable vehicle of consciousness. In other words, a suitable form, a suitable body. And we will explore some of these major vehicles of consciousness. We will explore them from the standpoint of physicality, with what everyone is mostly familiar with. And we will go higher and higher to familiarize with some of these major vehicles of consciousness. I would like to make a note that they're all interlinked, all interconnected. They're not separate from each other. Nothing is separate as such. Just like your heart is not separate from your liver, your lungs, your kidneys, and your brain, they're all necessary for you to have a healthy life. So the same way, in a larger sense, you are a multidimensional being. Nothing is separate. And of course, when we go to higher planes of existence, it is possible to function without the lower vehicles of consciousness. For example, when a person passes away, they drop the physical body. So the same way, if and when the soul decides to permanently or semi-permanently, more correctly to say, abide in a higher specific plane, then it may discard the lower vehicles of consciousness. And when the soul decides to abide only in the divine, no more being in any creation, what is left is the soul itself, in conjunction with the spirit as a companion and as a further mastery within the divine regions. So let's dive deeper and we will go through step by step starting with Pinda, the physical region, where we have a physical body that currently your soul and spirit are sustaining and experiencing this physical reality by the five sense organs. The physical body is also known Annamaya Kosha in Vedantic philosophy, the first kosha. For those verse in Vedantic philosophy. As we go higher up, beyond the physicality, in under region, there are four lower bodies. There is astral body, which is basically like your body double, we may say. A finer body that usually looks exactly like you look right now. Emotional body is, in some traditions, they say that it's exactly just like astral body, but in other traditions, and we recognize certain differences that emotional body has from the astral body. They're very similar, yet there are certain differences. So to maybe explain a little bit, that the astral body is like a double copy of this body, and the emotional body is only primarily dealing with emotions. Astral body deals with more things. It is dealing with emotions and thoughts and just, well, basically nearly everything like you're experiencing now apart from physicality. So that's why we distinguish astral and emotional body as different. There is also the lower etheric body, within which you experience your chakras, your energy centers, and a lower mental body. In Vedantic philosophy, these are called pranamaya, manamaya, and vijnanamaya koshas. So these are the four lower bodies that are very tightly interlinked with the physical body. They're vital for the physical body because you do feel emotions, thoughts, and your energy centers, chakras actually regulate your glands and in return organs and all the bodily functions. Also, this is where in the under the subconscious mind is, which stores beliefs, values, determines our memories, and monitors all information around us, deciding what to send to the conscious mind and what to store for later processing in the subconscious mind. In the under, we also have the ego identity, which is the most dense and fully engrossed mind of duality. So all of these constitute what we call the lower bodies all together. And now the next step upwards, still in under region, is your highest self. It is often associated as the light body, and the higher self manages all of these lower bodies, including taking care of your physical body as well. So if you assume that you are managing everything, I laugh because people assume that they are in control, that they're managing their physical body, that they're managing everything. In comparison to the higher self, a regular unawakened person manages only maybe 3, 4, 4, 5% of what actually the highest self manages. So the highest self is actually taking care of all of that. it is the one who does all the hard work and regulates everything together, balances all together. Typically, you awaken to your highest self at the level of consciousness, inner wisdom, highest self, which follows after the inner light awaken. And the higher self exhibits and possesses all of your best and most proficient qualities. So actually, it's a higher version of you. It is a more perfect version of you. It knows all the past lives. It knows everything about this lifetime to the detail. And it also knows many things about the future, what is already set in motion. It is like you who is watching from a higher density, 5D and above, and looking down and seeing very well the past, present, and future. It's one thing. So this is commonly also called the eternal self, the heavenly self, especially in the Christian tradition. When you go to heaven, you will live forever, or in the New Age, your light body, timeless body, and so on. All of these names are ascribed to the higher self in the common spiritual knowledge. However, higher self, even though is very wise, has a much broader perspective of life, it tries to also navigate and manage the ego identity to the best of ability. But ego identity is a bit like automation. It's a pre-programming. And if a person is heavily programmed to only do this, this, and this, then the higher self struggles to make an impact because the automation is running. So higher self tries to do its best to manage everything. However, it is subject to duality. It is subject to the knower, knowing, and the known. Therefore, it is influenced greatly by the dualities of life. And equally so, higher self strives to ascend, to resolve the karmas, because actually, when the physical body drops, it is the higher self who then looks at everything, what there is, all the karma, and what is awaiting as the next incarnation, and experiences all the struggles, all the pains, and wants to have a better life and to resolve all the issues so that it can also become balanced and freed and ascend to the higher regions. So it has the same aspirations as a spiritual seeker would have. So in the under region, we all have a reflective soul body, which is right above the highest self. It is like a reflection of the soul, the same way that the moon reflects the light of the sun. The moon doesn't have light, but at night it shines because it reflects the sun. So the same way the reflective soul body reflects the light of the soul into the lower under region, and therefore it's right above the highest self. Sometimes it is also called as a lower Christed or Buddhic self because it's a portion of the soul that is projected down, and it possesses the qualities of love, compassion, and wisdom. Still in under region, we have a solar angel form, which is now more purer, quite blissful actually when you experience it. And it is like a glorified angelic being, a solar form that is connected to our local sun. And when you meditate, we've done many meditations in the past where we visualize that we meditate in the sun. And actually, When you experience that, it is your solar angel form, which is in the sun. And you then experience this great light and brightness everywhere and a certain blissfulness, because of course your physical body cannot go into the sun. It will burn up in a second. Neither your higher self can go into the sun, nor your follower other bodies. But when you do this meditation, you are experiencing via your solar angel form, very bright form. The last major vehicle of consciousness in the Anda region is the individual monad, which is a unit of consciousness at the very top of Anda region, which radiates the light down and sustains all the lower vehicles of consciousness within Anda and Pinda. So it makes sure that everything works harmoniously for the higher spiritual goal. And it is different than the collective monad, also called the oversoul, because a collective monad, or known as oversoul, is actually a group of souls or a group of individual monads. So they have like a group consciousness. It is good to know that you have your individual monad through which then you continue to purify karma in order to finish off everything in Pinda and Anda. And the last vehicle of consciousness there is the monad. When you finish the karma of the monad, at that level, you become liberated on Pinda and Anda, and then you ascend into Brahmanda region as your higher grounded state. So we're looking at these vehicles of consciousness from an individual perspective. We're not looking at the vast diversity of group consciousnesses or even animals and plants and suns and moons and stars and galaxies. We're not looking at those vehicles of consciousness. We're looking in relation directly to you. And when you work on the karma clearing, this is what we go through to clear the karma within primarily these vehicles of consciousness. Although I need to say that there are even more smaller sub-vehicles of consciousness, and sometimes we meditate on those depending on the need. Some of these vehicles of consciousness have their own chakras. And when we do this much more complex work of karma clearing, we may also look and clear the karma in those chakras. So now probably you're going to start rolling your eyes and say, oh my God, this sounds extremely complex. It is, because it is. The doctors still haven't figured out the human body with all the millions of doctors. They still haven't fully figured out how to heal diseases, how to take care in a perfect way of the human body. It's so vastly complex. So I just want to give this perspective. Now we will proceed further into the Brahmanda region. And before we go there, we know that the sages, gurus, yogis in thousands of years have been exploring these subtle bodies, have been working on clearing those subtle bodies, because their primary concern has always been the liberation of the soul. Therefore, it is not something recently new discovered as such. This has been looked at for thousands and thousands of years. Of course, these subtle bodies have existed whenever the creation was created, and these vehicles of consciousness became ready for the souls to inhabit and experience and enjoy the creation. It's a bit like a costume party when there is a special occasion and you say, let's organize the vintage 60s costume party. So you invite all your friends into your creation, which is the party, and you tell everybody the dress code, that please dress up in the 60s style, and everybody has to dress up. So this is your little creation and how everybody needs to dress up. So in a larger sense, when these vast regions of creation are created, then it takes a lot of time to also create suitable bodies or forms, vehicles of consciousness, to invite all the guests, the souls, so that it's compatible within the creation. And that may take millions of years to create these vehicles of consciousness. Nobody knows how long it took to create a human body the way it is now, let alone other higher vehicles of consciousness. Millions and billions of years. All of this took time to create. So now we ascend upwards to Brahmanda region. This is where the ego identity is expanded into a cosmic region and can become immersed into the no-mind state, which is like a non-dual void, mini-void. It can also be identified with, we will cover other major forms soon. But the ego identity is now greatly expanded. The fourth degree carries on from Anda into Brahmanda. This is where the I am presence vehicle of consciousness begins here, but actually what we have realized more and more, that this is a lower I am presence version. Because when you read, study, and meditate accordingly with the teachings of the ascended masters, particularly Saint Germain, he speaks of the I am presence as a glorious, mighty being who has mastered perfection. And that actually is in the ParBrahmanda region. We will come to it. But in the Brahmanda region, there's a lower I am presence. And this is what most of the Ascension teaching students and teachers encounter and work with and mainly experience. So I'm very familiar with the Ascension teachings and Saint Germain teachings. I've experienced and meditated on the I am presence a long time. So this, in the Brahmanda region, it's the lower I am presence. This is where the mantra I am reverberates, and you learn to command the decrees, which are like a spoken commands, decrees, the spoken word. So a lower version, still subject to duality. In the fourth Brahmanda region, we encounter a cosmic avatar form. Every one of you has this form, but you're aware of it, or it is open, activated to a certain degree. And some yogis who become very aware of this cosmic avatar form and they identify with it, and then they proclaim that I am the avatar of Shiva, I am the avatar of Vishnu. And we know many of these beings in the history proclaiming to be these cosmic avatars at this degree. So the cosmic avatar form is actually a fourth Brahmanda plane form, and it is surrounded by a ring of golden light. And it is just prior to the fifth Brahmanda plane, which is the universal consciousness, God consciousness. This form is also known as Annamaya Kosha. the body of bliss, so to speak, that in the Vedantic philosophy, the aim is to open to experience this bliss and to merge into the Atman or realize the Brahman. So when this Annamaya Kosha is purified, then you open up to God consciousness form at the top of the fifth Brahmanda plane. And this is known as the universal consciousness, the consciousness of Brahman, of our universe. It is like a blinding white sphere or light, and the mantra, I am God, may be heard here. Beyond this, at the very top is also the lower causal body, which is a depository of the unconsciousness and karma within Brahmanda and Pinda regions. There's a separate layer which is part of the causal body, which surrounds the Hridayam chakra called Ahamkara, which is known as the eye maker, which basically makes the identity of the ego self, the I maker, making of the I identity. So now we're going to go up to the Brahma Jyoti region. In the Brahma Jyoti region, we encounter a higher mental body. And this is why distinctly the Brahma Jyoti region, or the commonly known as awareness, is actually a higher mental plane. And the ParBrahmanda is the higher etheric plane. Very, very rarely anyone explains this. Everyone assumes that awareness is the source of everything, absolutely the self. But in reality, it is a higher mental plane. This is where you have a higher mental body, which allows you to experience the light of awareness, a blissful mind. In itself, it is the blissful mind of Lord Brahma. And that is, yes, beyond duality. This is why many yogis get excited that now they're beyond duality. They realize the Atman. They realize that this is the Brahm. This is the bliss. This is the light beyond all duality, and I must be free now, they assume. But that's not the case. This is the mind of the Lord Brahm. It is above duality, but it is the maker of duality. And the ego identity expands into the pure subject as awareness. So it can be said that this is the first degree of enlightenment at the awareness level of consciousness. Because it is beyond duality, it is beyond the universe, it is very blissful and enlightening, but it's not nowhere near complete, or there are many other high degrees of enlightenment. Now we go up to the ParBrahmanda region. We have the higher etheric body, and it is interconnected with all other vehicles of consciousness within this region. There are, of course, well, ParBrahmanda is so vast. There are 700 quadrillion universes. And the souls travel through different universes, actually, in the ParBrahmanda region. So you and somebody else in the ParBrahmanda would travel through different universes to reach the divine. Therefore, how many vehicles of consciousness are there? Are many, depending on those universes. But for the sake of simplicity, not that it's very simple so far, but the major vehicle of consciousness is the higher etheric body. The ego identity is very largely expanded into the supra-universal regions. It becomes immersed in what is called the pure mind state. The pure mind state. It has no more any duality, any negativity. It is not karmically bound to the lower Brahmanda and Lord Brahm or Kal Niranjan. So the mind is pure. And this is why it also is associated with the Buddhic, or also known as Christ itself. We will come back to that. And it can also be immersed, the ego identity, in the no mind state above in the great void. Of course, there can be a lot of confusion. What is the no mind state? Because any void, any space can be assumed as a no mind state. But traditionally speaking, the no mind state would be the immersion into the voidness. So we have a void in Brahmanda, and we have a void above, the great void above ParBrahmanda. I am presence here is now the real deal. It is the truly perfect, mighty, glorious, original I am presence as described by Saint Germain. So Saint Germain brought the teachings of the I am presence in great, great detail, and he brought it from this domain. But then it got mixed up with all dualities into the lower I am presence within our own universe. Then people make up out of it whatever they can imagine. In the ParBrahmanda, that's where we have the higher Buddhic Christ itself, and it has perfected qualities of wisdom, love, and compassion, which are the blueprints of perfected beings within the creation. We could say that it is a perfect blueprint of the Adamic human being, how a perfected human being is supposed to be. So the Christed Buddhic self in ParBrahmanda is that perfected form. We know that Jesus, the Christ, fully embodied this perfected form. And therefore, we could say that he was a Maha avatar of love, a perfected Christed embodiment. We also have avataric and God consciousness forms in the ParBrahmanda, which look like a dazzling white seed and can take on various qualities depending on the level of development in ParBrahmanda region. So these are the avatars or God-identified yogis in the ParBrahmanda region who also proclaim that I am the avatar, and they have much more power because they experience this vastly greater light and power, Shakti, than in the lower universe of Brahmanda. And lastly, we have the higher causal body in the ParBrahmanda, which is the depository of unconsciousness, of karma for ParBrahmanda region and Brahmajyoti region. Because further down in the local universe, there is another lower causal body, which is a depository of karma for everything below. And finally, we approach the divine region, Sat Lok, Sachkhand, and that is where the only vehicles of consciousness that are at that level is the soul. And when the karma is cleared, the soul is liberated. So it completes all the karma in all the regions below. So this is a short and humble overview of the vehicles of consciousness that every one of you, dear souls, have. These are some of the great works ahead for you to work with them. In some traditions, they have different names for the same things, or they might classify slightly differently. But in a large, extended view, these are the major ones. It's a highly, highly complex topic and highly subtle work that occurs at all of these regions. Just to add a note that some people say, I just want to be healthy. Yes, to be healthy, you need to exercise, eat the right food, have enough of sleep, take care of your stress. You need to do all these things just to be healthy, let alone your higher vehicles of consciousness. They're even more complex, even more expanded. So sometimes people want very simple things, but the creation is not simple at all. It's so vast, so huge. Neem Karoli Baba, a really beautiful being, once said, it is easier to love God than to understand God. It is easier to love God than to understand God. However, of course, there are other beings. This would be more of a typical bhakti approach. Jnana yogis would also prefer more simplistic views, but there are other yogis and gurus, sadgurus. For example, Buddha, who had extreme precision and knowledge of all creation to extreme detail. So there's a diversity of ways. And if you want to extensively clear the karma, it's not as simple as I just want to be healthy or I just want to get rid of my karma. So not as easy as it seems. This is why there is a saying that it is by the grace of God and the tireless work of Sadhguru and the higher beings that these great works unfold. And our limited perspectives, just like saying that the average person, when they say that I am managing my body, what do you mean? Do you manage your heart pumping the blood, or are you managing the lung contraction and expansion? Are you managing the digestive process, the blood cell functions? You're not doing any of that. You're just thinking that you're managing it all, while in reality, everything takes place in a much more complex way.